Without further ado, it's my great privilege to introduce a dear friend of mine. I've known Bob Korzeniewski since the first night I walked in the Career Network Ministry, and I met him in the back of McLean Bible Church. He caught me, looked at me strangely because I have this alien atmosphere about me, and then took me over to the resume review table where the director of the Office of Personnel Management was seated, and that guy reviewed my resume. That was pretty impressive for me to see that and to actually have that kind of engagement my first night with Career Network Ministry. And as you can imagine, that was the glue that stuck me to this organization. If you're looking for cohesive tissue or someone who can develop that in an organization, Bob Korzeniewski is your guy. He has been a CFO for several organizations, and one of those organizations, he bought and sold over 70 companies. If you can imagine a more connected human being on the planet, we may have that person in the back in another table, but Bob Korzeniewski is the person that you want to have coffee with. And tonight he's going to talk to you about something that we're all a little bit skittish about, at least I was when I entered the world, and that's networking. He's a master, a dear friend, a great philanthropist. Would you all give Bob Korzeniewski a big round of applause?
Good evening, everybody. He'll turn that on in a second. You know, so most of the time when I talk, I say, if we do no slides, that's a really successful night. Because in the audience here is probably more wisdom around this topic than I'm going to be able to share. Like, you know, Ricardo, right? So Ricardo came here from Colombia. And when I first met him, he said he didn't know enough English, right, to be able to figure out how to get out of Dulles Airport, right? So he comes here with absolutely no network. You know, comes here to get his MBA, valedictorian of his MBA class, when he barely could speak English. You know, that's networking. To come here, another country, don't speak the language, and figure out how you're gonna create a career. That's networking. And I met with Amanda earlier today, right? She just came from the UK. She has to go through that same thing. I could go around and talk about other people who have come here and had to figure out the real challenge of real networking. Most of us already have some sort of network, right? We may not be aggressively using it, right? We may not fully understand how to approach it, but it's that warm network we're going to talk most about. Right, and how we can use that warm net more to catapult ourselves. And we could talk about 10 topics, right? We could talk about how to have coffee meetings, right? Which is my favorite topic, how to have coffee meetings. For many reasons, I think that's where the rubber meets the road. You know, we could talk about big meetings, how to work a room. That's kind of overwhelming for most people. We could talk about informational interviews. We could talk about how to get employee referrals, right? 30% of all jobs come from employee referrals. So if we don't play in that pool, we're missing an awful big bucket. We could continue to talk about other forms of networking. How do we go out beyond that and find other opportunities? Cold networking, right? Which is a whole nother form versus warm networking. So good news or bad news is we're going to talk about all of them. That's the good news. It may also be the bad news because we could take any one of those and spend the whole night on it. So we're going to try to come up with a bunch of ideas. So here's what I hope. I hope that if we throw out a bunch of ideas, you're going to pick a few things you're going to try to do. So I'm going to ask you at the end of the night, what did we talk about tonight that you might do that you weren't doing before? And see if we can get a few things. If you're doing everything, that's great. You're just not allowed to sit there and not have a few things you're going to try to do. So we'll try to do that. So let's get started. So I think these are the things all of us have to kind of grab as part of networking. Be prepared, right? Be inquisitive, and be bold. Right? In whatever order you want to make them. Prepared is a good thing to start with. Right? Inquisitive is probably the order I'd like to see them in. The more prepared, it's like anything we do, the more prepared you are, the better you are at it, right? The more prepared we are, the more comfortable we are being inquisitive, because we're prepared. We combine those two things, we can be a little bolder. And bold is different for everybody, right? Dee Dee might think being bold is walking right into the CEO's office and putting her resume on the table. With someone else, it was pretty bold to be here tonight, right? So what I'm trying to get you to do on the boldness is every week do something bold. And then we're going to stretch, right? We're going to stretch those boundaries of what we're willing to do. So when you're making your goals for the week, what am I going to do that's outside my comfort zone this week? This week. And if we can do one of those every week, you're going to realize it wasn't that bold, right? That it wasn't as hard as you thought it was going to be. So some of the goals we're going to have tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about networking, what you guys think. I'll have some tips. We'll do some quick breakouts, and then we'll talk about which ones you're going to do. So the slides are a little dense for a particular reason, so that someone that's not here, if they look at the slides later, has some idea what we're talking about. So there's a lot of words on them. I apologize for the words. But here's the first step. What's your value proposition? When I'm, in the same way in an interview, where I ask people, okay, are you prepared for the interview? And there is 3 prep steps I like to talk about, but the third one is, what do you want me to think about you when you're done with the interview? When you leave, what do you want me to think? Right? So I don't know if that's part of your interview prep, but it's also part of you're going to see a lot of similarities between interview stuff and networking stuff, because every networking interaction is an interview. Right? So it's just another form of interview, which is another reason why I like it, because then when you do go into an interview, it's just another networking meeting. Versus if we're not doing them, those interviews can be scary. You know, we're not really prepared to tell our story. We're not really prepared to have the level of interaction that we can get some comfort with. But what's your unique value prop? Now we're going to do a breakout here in a second. You're going to have to think about what your unique value prop is. That's going to be our first breakout, right? So just start thinking about that. We're going to be that in less than 5 minutes. So what do you want me to think about you when we're done networking? Okay. The other big thing, networking isn't about getting a job. It's not about getting a job. That's way up there on the list. Right? The only one responsible for getting us a job is ourselves. It's the only person. But everyone else can help us by giving us air. Right? And air is advice, information, and referrals. And as soon as we take that off the table for the people that we're meeting with, we've taken all the pressure out of the room. Because most people, short of a few people we have in this room, like Cheryl Bedard, they're not experts at helping us get a job. But everyone has connections, and if I can help share them with you or give you some advice, then we've had a positive interaction. And that positive interaction is something we want to do more of. It's positive for you, it's positive for them. So it's never about a job. Never about a job. If we had an email we send somebody, and one of the tagline was, I need help with a job, and the other one said, I need help networking. And the body of the email is identical. One of them has about a 20% return, and the other has about an 80% return, even though the body is identical. So it's that powerful. As soon as you tell someone I need help with a job, most people are scared. Because there's a few people that know how to do that. So it's not about a job. We talked about interviewing. So positive energy. You know, it's hard at times, right? It's hard to have positive energy all the time. But we have to figure out how to bring our best self. We have to bring our best self. I mean, in the early days of having coffee meetings, I wouldn't have done it with someone. But now I'll meet with someone, if I'm 10 minutes into it, I'll stop and say, you know, we're 10 minutes into this and I feel no positive energy. Right? That's because I'm not helping that person if I'm not delivering that. Positive energy is, it's a smile, it's excitement, it's realizing that things may be tough, but my best self is coming here. It's what you have to do in an interview, right? You have to bring our best self, whatever it is that you're able to bring. But it's really about building and rebuilding relationships. Because most people I talk to say, I let my network lapse. I was busy with life and work, didn't really stay connected to people, and now it's kind of hard to reach back, right? You have to give yourself permission to reach back. Because rebuilding those relationships where you already had some level of trust is probably the single most important thing you can do. And then we're going to have new ones. The people who I see are best at it say, this is a unique window of time for me to reconnect and extend my network. Right? And networking is now a life skill. Before maybe it was a nice to have, I'd say it's a life skill. So it's not something we can escape. And as fast paced as this world is going, your network's going to continue to be important. Yep. I would love that.
The whole point that Bob has about bringing your best self and having positive energy, if you're not feeling that, if you're traumatized, which some people really are, recognize it, name it, and get the help that you need to get past it, because you can't fix it in the middle of an interview. You got to deal with that before you get there. And my favorite thing to say about that, and I think I've said it every time I'm here, nobody wants to hire Eeyore. You got to bring Tigger to the party. The second thing I want to say about rebuilding connections and letting your network lapse, think about this. If you picked up the phone and called, if Bob picked up the phone and called you, would your first response be, well, Bob, you haven't called me in 4 years, why you call me now? Or would it be, it's nice to hear from you? So when you get in your own head thinking you can't call somebody, imagine them calling you, and you will get over the roadblock, and you'll go ahead and you make the call.
That's great. Please interrupt me at any given time. I'd be happy to do no slides. Those of you who join my Thursday coffee meetings know I'm happy with no slides. If you have questions out there or comments, bring them up. We can stop anytime. We'll do as many slides as we can. We'll eventually pass out. John, I got a couple pages back there that are not identical, but they summarize kind of 31 different networking tips for you guys to think about. And when we do our exercises, you could use the paper if you didn't bring paper with you to write on the back of it. So I tried to do mine, right? And mine's a little dated. This is what it would have been back when I was working a number of years ago. But if I was saying, what do I want people to think about me, right? I want them to think that I was a great team player. I'd want them to think that I was a good leader. I want them to think that I had broad, deep business experience, that I was a strong communicator, and that I delivered all that with some form of humble confidence. So that's a rough cut at what mine would have been. For different people, it's different, depending upon the job you're at and what your experience is and what you want to project that you think this is you. What are you going to, when you show up in this new job, what you is going to show up? Project them that, tell them that, and figure out, because when I do this, I can now say, okay, how do I want to carve an elevator pitch, which no one is better than JV, by the way. If you're stuck on your elevator pitch, he calls it an elevating pitch, so grab him or the tables that we have to work on that. But this really flows through, when I think about unique value prop, it flows through everything I do. And it starts at networking. Am I leaving that impression if I was out networking with someone that I was looking for help from, right? I'd want to weave a little bit of this in. I'm going to do less talking than they are. I'm going to do more listening. But hopefully when I'm done, when someone says, what did you think of Bob? I want to make sure that I have at least touched on these things as differentiators, maybe not individually, but as a group that I'm comfortable, that's me. So that would be still on that one. So he passes the paper out, so this is his question. We're going to take just 3 or 4 minutes. I realize everyone might not get it done, but what's your unique value prop? What do you want people to think about you when you're done networking with them? see how many of these things you can get. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to try to do it. Do we have shortage of pens? Does anyone need pens? We'll track some down and get you guys pens who need them. But what are 3 or 4 things that when people meet you and you're done, say, in a half-hour coffee meeting, what do you want to leave them with? All right, well, I know everyone may not be done, but if we're trying to cover the universe of networking, we have a quick allotment. We're going to do 2 more exercises after this, so we'll try to get time for all of them. So you wrote something down, you got started. Probably something maybe you've thought about before, but kind of hard to think about the different variables, because maybe no one variable is unique, but when you combine them, they're uniquely you. So anybody want to share what they wrote down? Yes, we got someone, we'll get you a microphone. Or you'll be loud. Do we have a microphone? You can be loud.
I'll give this a go. Why not? Can I just stay here? I'm sorry.
There you go.
Simply in order of what came to my mind, not in hierarchy. Active listener, confident. I'll add humble.
Humble.
Later.
Active listener, confidence. I'm just going to repeat it for my
leader, mentor, coach.
Leader, mentor, coach.
Cross-cultural expertise across over a dozen countries. Skilled at adaptive management and detail-oriented.
Great, thank you. How about a hand for her? That was great. And she'll eventually think about which ones are the most important ones if she can't weave them all into a discussion with someone, but try to get that perspective of her unique value proposition. Do we have one more? Anyone else want to do it? Yes. Tell me your name.
Aidan.
Aidan, please, there you go.
Thank you. So I have strong communicator who pays attention, intelligent, up to date on current media trends as it relates to my film and television, committed to hard work but also not overly serious about everything, and skilled in an array of fields beyond just film and television.
Great, thank you. You can pass that back to him, thank you. But I think it's where you have to start. It's no different than when I meet with someone, I say, what is it you'd like to do for a job? If they're not sure yet what it is they want to do, it's hard to network because you're not sure what to ask your network for. So often then you're networking for advice where your network can help you figure out what it is you want to do. But we kind of, even if what it is we want to do is more than one thing, we at least got to be able to say, I'm looking at multiple things in multiple industries. And then our network can help us figure it out. But we got to have an idea what we want to do. And it helps in the unique value proposition for you to think, did I paint that picture? When you leave one of these networking meetings, did I paint that picture? Did I paint the picture that I wanted to paint? And if you paint it in that network meeting, you do a great job of painting it in the interview. Okay, we're on the right button. So second thing, we got to energize our base. Our base is people that we know and they know us. These don't have to be our best friends, but it's got to be where we've already got some level of trust, right? We get some form of mutual respect. It's a pretty low bar. It's a low bar. I used to have this number as, believe it or not, 100 when I started doing this 17 years ago, because that's what the insurance companies did, right? When you got out of school and you become an insurance salesman, they locked you in a room and they slid this piece of paper under there and you had to get 100 people on that list. And they broke it out by church and sports and family and relatives. And I don't think you got to come out and eat until you got those 100 names. We actually used the insurance company form in the early days of CNM, trying to get people to get 100 people on their list. You know, and many of us have a little gray hair. 100's not a crazy number. I got 10, right? I got 10 on this list. So if we start with 10, who are the people that can be most helpful to you? It's actually, you know, when I meet with people, I try to go through who are your top candidates. I call them board of advisors because they're our top 10, they're our top 25, right? So what do we get out of an advisor, right? There's someone that we can meet with more than once when we're in job transition, and there's someone that will open up their connections to us. And I only say 3 connections, right? If you give me 3 connections, I'll show you the qualifications to be an advisor. But boy, if I can get 10 of them that will all give me 3 connections and meet with me more than once, I'm gonna be busy. I'm gonna be busy. That's a lot of, because I'm hoping those people I meet with at the next level will also give me people. So it's the funnel that everything starts, right? How do we turn 10 connections into 25? I like to meet in person. I realize that some of it geographically that can be hard. My next bet would be Zoom. If someone's zoomed out or for some reason doesn't do video, okay, we can then go to the phone. But I really would at least prefer to have some form of face-to-face interaction. How do we turn 10 into 25? So I love coffee meetings for many reasons. I think that's where the rubber meets the road versus the big group ones. We start from a level of trust and we extend from trust. So heads up while I'm going through this next slide. Our next exercise, we're only going to do 5. What 5 people are on your board of advisors? What 5 people either are today or you would want them to be on your board of advisors, and why? Why them? Why them? I've met with people that I knew really well, and they had their list of advisors, and I could look at them and say, well, what about Chris Parsons or Mark McLaughlin or John Donovan? They're like, oh, yeah, got them. So sometimes other people even have a perspective of people that could be more helpful to you than sometimes you do. But I want to start with people that we know. Yes, John.
Do you have any, are there any tripwires in terms of people with whom you have a different kind of relationship, a certain kind of family relationship, or you're in some way indebted to them for something, or they're indebted to you, not financially,
Yeah.
that you might avoid having on your board of directors?
Sure. Yeah. But and we'd probably have to dive into what does all that mean. But I'm looking for people that can be most helpful, right? So some form of mutual, they know your industry, they know your function, they're super connectors, they're hiring managers, they're in HR, they bring positive energy. Sometimes that's the most important person on your board, you know? Going through some tough week or tough time, you meet with that person and they just pump you up again, you're ready to go and take on the week, right? But who's on your board? And it can be more than this, right? It can be more than this. But, you know, I've had some people I've met with 8 times while they were in job transition, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons of how you do that to make each meeting be important and valuable, and the people that you reach back out to are willing to continue to have those meetings. But most people, you know, probably top of the list, don't take advantage of their trusted connections, right? And don't go back to them more than once. And don't ask them for other connections, right? Some people are gonna say to you, Sam, look through my LinkedIn profile. Give me a list as long as you want. I'll introduce all of them, right? So that 3 number, forget that 3 number, that's now a 100 number if you want it to be, right? We could dive into coffee meetings for the next hour, but if there are more questions on coffee meetings, I'm happy to have them. We'll talk a little bit more about them because it's really just a one-on-one networking meeting, right? But starting with people in our trusted base that are going to give us honest feedback, right? They're definitely going to give us advice because they're in one of these things. They're going to give us information, and they're going to give us referrals. So if we get air, the more air we get, we're bouncing, right? We've just changed those Converse to, you know, the new sneakers are bouncing around with the heels of this big. So we get a lot more bounce in our step when that happens. And I'm going to go back one here and just touch on one more thing. So, and we have to leave the hook, right? We have to leave the hook. I was chatting with Amanda earlier, right? Again, I'll probably bring that up a few times. She's a good example. I mean, she left the hook. She said, if I go back and do some of these things that we talked about, is it okay if I circle back with you again sometime in the future, right? So that's a hook I'd like to leave all the time, just so I'm not hesitant to go back to that person. Leave the hook. The other hook I like to leave is if someone works for a company I might want to work for someday, I might leave a hook in that meeting and says, geez, if I ever find a job at your company that I'm a great fit for, would you consider being an employee referral? I'd like to leave both of those hooks, not wait. Now I know I'm having a meeting with somebody, right? So when I have the meeting, I've already looked and saw there's no job currently at that company. But I know it's a company I'd like to work for someday if it was at all a job came up. So leave the hooks. Leave the hooks, because we don't ever want to be hesitant going back to those people and asking them. So see how many hooks we can leave. Okay, we got another 5-minute break, maybe less, because for some people they should be able to do this in about 30 seconds. It might not be, the real question I think is top 5, because top 5 is a real interesting thing. What 5 people are on your board of advisors? So, and as you're writing them, keep writing them. I'm just going to keep talking while you're thinking. Because one of the questions I then ask people as you're writing them, if I reached out to all of them, could they tell me the situation you're currently in and what it is you'd like to do? And maybe even who you'd like to do it for, right? If it should be yes, because they're top 5, right? But it usually isn't. I'm usually asking a bigger number, like 10 or more, and it's rare that all 10 of those people, even though people have been in search for a while, and in many cases quite senior, but the top 10 people in their network couldn't all tell me their current status. So that's something we got to eliminate, right? So our board of advisors needs to know we're in job transition, what it is we'd like to do, and maybe hopefully some idea of like who we'd like to do it for. Right? And to think about who could be most helpful is an interesting thing. That's why the exercise is usually more. It's like for those of us who have a few years of experience, this is like a 25 number, right? Maybe more. Because the more you just start writing down a bunch of names and go through all of them, it shouldn't be everyone you're connected to on LinkedIn, right? But you start looking at 25, then you can really prioritize in 25 who are the A's, who are the B's, who are the C's, right? And so now that list gets a tweak. But I really like to so the other thing I do with someone, I take their resume, right? Let's say you've had 5 jobs. I go, how many of your board advisors from this company? How many from this company? How many from this company? And when I'm looking at a list of 25, all of a sudden I see, oh, we got 3 or 4 from this company, 5 or 6 from this company. We have 0 from this company. And that causes a different discussion. Why 0 from that company? You worked there 5 years, but there isn't one person at that company that's on your board. Why? That's a different conversation. I hear like, well, they've all left. I go, good. Unless you want to go back to that company, it's good that they've left. They're in other places. Let's go see where they are. All right? So hopefully you had a chance to think about 5. I would encourage you to do more. I would encourage you to then look at your resume, do that exercise. Why don't I have some from some of these companies I work for? Because if that's my industry or that's my function, that's a logical place to do it as you're thinking about it. The goal here is to go into our trusted network and have some interactions. All right, I'm going to leave that while you're thinking. So this is basically it, right? So I think, now you can network in this room. You find other people that are job seekers. You find people that are volunteers. It's a great place to network. You get to learn from them because they're going through similar experiences like you are. And the volunteers we have are super talented. I used to tell people, when meetings in person were much bigger for most of the time we've been doing this, and I'd say, here's how you evaluate your evening, right? Did you meet 3 people you wouldn't have met if you didn't come? Our meetings were long, they were 5-hour meetings. So in 5 hours, you had more chances to meet people. Did you meet some people that you wouldn't have met, right? Are there 3 things you're going to do tomorrow that you wouldn't have done if you didn't come? And then I say, and did you meet 1 volunteer? 1 new volunteer that you didn't know. You saw when everyone stood up, we probably had 15 or more volunteers here tonight. I'd want to meet every single volunteer that was here. That would probably be top of my list. Every volunteer. because most of them are working. And they're here because they want to help. So that's about as powerful a connection as you should get, right? So we were going to do one of these, and we'll still do it one of these nights. We'll just have a networking night. We just come in and meet everybody, kind of like a version of our holiday parties. But meet a volunteer, meet some people you didn't know, think about what you're going to do that you wouldn't have done if you didn't come. So here's when we meet with someone, you know, when Sam says, I asked Sam, do you know anybody, you know, at the end of it, because I got to say, who do you know? Can't leave a meeting without saying, who do you know? And Sam says, here's these 3 people. My first answer is, can I reach out to them and use your name, or would you like to connect me directly? Because if I leave it in Sam's court, he may not do it, right? What I want him to do is give me the ball. Give me the ball, coach. So if Sam says, sure, reach out to them and use my name, I'm going to say, great. I'll circle back to you if I have any problem with anyone. All right, so now I've got the best of both worlds. I'm using his name, I'm going forward, and I've set a hook that if I have a problem, I go back to Sam. And now guess what? The connection goes out in the next hour instead of maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, maybe. You got a lot of busy people, very good intentions, but sometimes they don't leave that meeting and have first thing on the mind is I got to remember to reach out to 3 people for you. So if you can get the ball, grab the ball. I'm always surprised when I meet with someone and they don't really know much about me. Not that that's not an ego thing. I don't need the ego thing. It's like if you're meeting with somebody, do a little bit of research. 10 minutes of research. You're going to find out so much more, right? Especially in the virtual meetings. Like if I go to a virtual meeting, I want to know who the person is presenting. I'm going to reach out to them in advance on LinkedIn and send them a LinkedIn request saying, hey, Cheryl, I am going to your class on Thursday. I've heard great things about it. I would really enjoy being connected. Look forward to seeing you Thursday. Cheryl gets 1 of those. She gets 1. I'm the only one that sends her that note. She now remembers me when I show up in that video presentation. I've done my homework, so I have my 3 questions ready. I don't go to a virtual meeting. Don't go if I don't have 3 questions. Do not show up. Don't go. 3 questions. I ask those 3 questions. I, again, am in the top 1% of people in Cheryl's class because I had 3 questions. And I actually know something about Cheryl. I've spent all of 10 minutes. Then, after that, I send a follow-up note. Cheryl, I really enjoyed that class. Here are my key takeaways. Oh, by the way, might you have 15 minutes where we could jump on a call? Again, I am 1 of 1. That's sad, but I'm 1 of 1. Probability 75% or better that Cheryl says yes. You know, if you get to a CEO or someone real senior, it may not happen. But when you're 1-on-1 to reach out in advance, 3 really could, might not get all 3 in, at least get 1 or 2. And then you are the person that reaches back. Here's what my key takeaways were. Can we meet? I'm saying the probability is 75% or better. You invested 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes. That's less than it takes to drive the last half mile to get to the church. So think about that. Right? That's an investment you're going to come say, wow, that person that was speaking was someone I would really love to be able to have a one-on-one with. And that's all it took to get a one-on-one meeting with that person and leave an important mark. I mean, I go to George Mason and speak a couple times a year, and I tell this kid the same thing. You guys are the internet guys. You know, I got no LinkedIn connections, and no follow-up. You didn't know much about me. You just can't do that. And you can really separate yourself in person, but also in video, right? So good small talk's important, but really good questions. You know, and I used to have a list of here's all the questions, maybe I've got a few. Here's all the questions you should ask, and I used to have examples of all the emails you should send. And I just went on ChatGPT this week and went, that stuff is all better than everything I used to send. I'm not going to put anything in there. It's all better than what I would send. So I could write some stuff, and people liked, oh, that's what they particularly love. Here's how you should say the emails. Use AI. Ask AI, what should I say in this? What should I do here? What questions should I ask? What about this? What about that? Stuff's really good. It's really good. Great questions to ask you. You say, how do I have a coffee meeting? How do I have an informational interview? How do I do this? How do I do that? What should I say with that? Here's the situation. Here's who I'm meeting with. Here's a little bit about them. What should I ask? Crazy good. Crazy good stuff. Marketing plans. How many people know what a marketing plan is? Let's see, maybe half the people, yeah. So it comes from the outplacement industry. We have some Lee Heck Harrison people here. So Lee Heck Harrison's the biggest outplacement guys. So it basically, we could call it a target company list. I think people would understand it better because there is some other parts of it, but it's really about if I could pick who would I go to work for? What would I do and who would I go to work for? So here's the titles of the jobs that I'd be looking for, and here's 25 companies that would be my top companies. Maybe 3 different industries, maybe 10 in each industry. But boy, now when I meet with you and I'm trying to figure out what it is you want to do, I've had people come in that just put that marketing plan down. We spend 100% of the time on the marketing plan. Really important, if your resume says one thing and where you want to go is a different thing, then the marketing plan is like critical. Because if I spend time on your resume, I'm not helping you because you want to go somewhere different than what your resume says. If we're changing industries, changing functions, marketing plan is really helpful, but it's helpful for everybody because I know where you want to go and what you want to do. And if I know what you want to do, I'm now going to talk about, are those the right companies? Would I take any off? Would I add you to them? All right, and I'm going to say, I understand the functions, I understand what's your focus. And I'm going to say, hey, have you thought about this company? Have you thought about that company? And guess what? If I throw a company onto your list, it's probably because I know somebody there, right? So your goal, though, when you do this marketing plan, you're not going to like this one, is to know somebody, network into somebody at each and every one of your target companies, right? So when people say 70% of all jobs come from networking, I couldn't possibly spend 70% of my time networking. You could, though, right? That's a big bucket. If I got 25 companies, I got to go get to know somebody at 25 companies. Maybe I already know 5, so I got a whole bunch to chase down. And by the way, I've got this 10-person board of advisors, and they keep sending me other people to meet. I'm spending 90% of my time networking. I got to find some time to do job applications. Yes, Mario.
That's pretty easy to do with LinkedIn. You just go to LinkedIn, type in your target company. It kicks back who you know first, second, third.
Right. That assumes that you have a rich LinkedIn base of connections, right? And the bigger your base of connections is, the more you're going to have the probability of knowing someone. But I bet many people I look at, and they don't really know people that they know what company they'd like to work for, especially, again, if we're changing industries or changing functions. We're going into an industry we haven't played in, we may not be very well connected there, right? So it's a lot more networking work to do that. Doable. Many people have done it. But depends how well we know people in that industry. So we do marketing plan workshops once a month at CNM, virtual. We also have people who talk about marketing plans here at the tables every week. Grab them and talk about it. It's also in our CNM handbook, a whole bunch of stuff about marketing plans. And again, AI. Follow up the field. This is pretty important. So let's see, I probably had 5,000 or 6,000 coffee meetings. I'm going to guess 10% of the time I got an email after the call, 10%. Saying, not so much thank you, saying, here's my takeaways. Here's what I'm going to go do based upon our meeting, right? It's probably more like 25% if it just counts the thanks for having coffee. So it's really the takeaways, because when we think about networking, I think the technical definition would say a mutual exchange of value between 2 parties, right? And we're not currently in the mutual exchange mode. We can say, what can I do for you? And we always should offer to see if we can do something for them. So what do we give in exchange when we're asking somebody to help us? And the most powerful thing we have in our bag, by far, is true gratitude. True gratitude. So they feel it when you've done your research, you know something about them. They feel it when you treat it like an interview, you show up on time, you're dressed appropriately, you've got pen and paper. I've had some people show up with no pen and paper. I said, I guess I'm not going to say anything of any value. So you treat it like I'm expecting to get real value. This air that you're about to give me is important air, right? And I appreciate it. So you can say those words, you can say the words, but you got to then demonstrate it, right? You demonstrate it by treating it seriously. But the thing that people, I think, is really good at the end of it, you send an email, right? And it might be that I say, you know, Mario, it was really great. I walked away with so much value, and I just want to give you a short list of my action items. So the magic number is 5. Some of them you got to make up. But it's 5, right? I want to show 5 things that I got out of that coffee meeting that I'm going to go do something about. And if I put any on Mario's plate, the number is 2. No more than 2, hopefully, right? I don't want to, I've gotten some notes that say, hey, Bob, thanks for coffee. Here's the 12 things you said you were going to do. Right? And so that's, and you know, it's a lot of stuff to go do. We had an hour coffee meeting. It's very possible I committed to that many things, but it's usually not successful. But I had one guy say, here's the 87 takeaways. I have 3 pages. That's a little over the top too. But 5, it basically says, because here's what the other person's doing on the other end of it. Your name is Deborah. Deborah says, Chief, she looks at the note and she goes, I was better than I thought I was. I'm pretty good at this. Look at all the things they took as action items. Wow, I should do more of these coffee meetings. I'm really good at this. Give good advice. But you've created gratitude. And when you create gratitude, the probability of another meeting goes way up, right? That email follow-up creates, it does a couple things. 1, it creates gratitude. 2, it gives you a chance, if they're going to do something that they took as action items, you get to do a little follow-up that says, oh, by the way, I wanted to update you on the 5 things that I was working on. Here's 3 of them, and here's the progress I made. And, oh, by the way, because now you put it on top of the other email you sent, it's a little tickler to them of their 2 action items without actually having to say, oh, by the way, did you do these 2 other things? So I get 2 bites. I get a midterm update, then I get the final one. And I've already left the hook to have another meeting with them if I need to, right? So that hook's already been set. So that email is important. I would say the number then drops down to 5% or less of people that will send me a note after I connect them to someone. Right? So again, we'll use Amanda because she was tonight. I gave her 3 people to meet with. She probably will not send me a note saying, I met Jody Tozer, blah, 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 but she might, because now I'm saying it. And the other, but to keep your network warm, if they give you names and say, yeah, use my name and reach out to John Venable. If you do reach out to John Venable, send that person that gave you that name a note back and say, I just got to let you know, that may be the smartest guy I've ever met. Right? But something nice about that connection, right? Send it back to the person that gave you the name. Keep that network warm. We're going to go back to them multiple times with multiple asks in this process, and they're going to be happy to have that because we're going to show how grateful we are all the way along that process. All right, we can do this or not. I want to be time sensitive, so we won't do this breakout. We'll just talk about it. So the question most people have is, what do I ask? You know, I'm meeting in these meetings. What do I ask people? Right? And so again, AI. But you know, this is what AI said on some of this. Build rapport, they said. AI says, do that first, build rapport. You know, what's been the most rewarding part of your work? What drew you to your current company? Learn about the industry. Where do you see the biggest opportunities? What trends do you see? Get guidance. What do you think I should focus on? What advice would you give someone transitioning to this industry for the people that are in federal thinking about something different? What companies would you recommend I explore? That's if you don't have a marketing plan. If you have a marketing plan, they're going to go, wow, you've already thought about that. But if not, that's all there. And then the gentle ask. We have to do the ask. Are the people you think I should meet? Would you mind if I follow it up in a few weeks? Other industry groups, associations found helpful? Boom, then we follow up, send them a note. Now, I'm big on personal notes, and I'm kicking myself because I have one that I keep on my desk that I meant to bring tonight and read. I am really disappointed I didn't do that. Because it was October 2010, and it said, I can't believe what an energizing meeting it was when I first found CNM. And you and the team were so gracious that I walked out of there with more wind underneath my wings to go tackle this assignment than I've ever had. And I can't be more grateful. And someday I'm looking forward to paying it back. Signed, J.V. Venable. Still sits on my desk. It's 15 years old. So that was just coming to one of this meetings. That wasn't a coffee meeting. That wasn't on a different type of meeting. That was just, I met someone at this meeting, personalized note. I'm a fan. I think personalizing everything makes a difference. LinkedIn has made that a little bit harder without paying. You know, it used to be that I told people you don't need to pay for LinkedIn because you can send enough customized notes. And now they limit the number of notes, so that's unfortunate, but I do like personalization. Employee referrals, I'd say when I meet with people, this bucket is almost empty. And if 30% of all jobs come from that bucket, we should really have a separate plan called the employee referral plan, and we should probably teach a class on it once a month because it's that important, right? It's that important. If Kathy and I both interview for a job, she came through the ATS system, random resume submittal. I came in through an employee referral. I'm 8 times more likely to get the job than she is, 8. Because I came in through an employee referral. Now, there's probably a lot of other variables in that number, but that's a big deal. It's a big deal. Doesn't mean you're going to get the job. Doesn't even mean you're going to get an interview, but it does probably mean human eyes are going to look at your resume. Human eyes will look at your resume, and that's a lot better than the alternative. Some places it means you get a phone screen, not all. So I like to leave the hook. So I like to, the way most people do employee referral, right? So you see a job you're interested in, and then you go look and see if you know anyone at that company. And I go, John works at that company. I reach out to John. Hey, John, there's a job at your company. Would you consider being an employee referral? That clock's moving fast, right? Because the job's already been posted, and I probably didn't see it. It was posted for a while. John's on vacation in the summer. Maybe that doesn't happen. I just go, I don't even want to bother John. It's too late. That's probably what happens, right? Sometimes I like to do the reverse engineering. Again, list. You're going to walk out of here with a lot of lists. And the number gets bigger based upon how many years you've worked. So don't take my low number for those of you that have a lot of experience as the target. But think of 10 people you know that would be an employee referral if you asked them. 10 people you know that would be an employee referral, you ask them, because many times you don't know where people have gone, right? You go look at them and say, geez, I didn't know Sam is now over at VeriSign. Huh, I should reach out to Sam. Who do you know that you could ask for an employer? So instead of the company being the target, the employee is the target. Especially for some of us that are a little company agnostic, we'd like to get a good job for a good company because we're a recent graduate, right? We'd like to get a good job with a good company because we've come from another country and we got to get back in the game, right? Whatever the variable is, we're coming from the federal government, right? And so maybe it's more important to get back into industry with a good company than it is the exact perfect job. Look at where you know somebody already. And if you examine those, you're going to be surprised. You go into LinkedIn and go, for those, like I worked at VeriSign, Network Solutions, SAIC. So I could go in and put, SAIC, former company. Look at everyone that used to be at SAIC. Where are they now? Oh, wow. They're off at these other companies. And even if I don't know them, I've got an affinity ability to go ask, hey, Didi, we maybe didn't know each other at SAIC, but we were both there. Can we chat, right? Love affinity, love affinity. So yes, the reverse employee referral, I think something everyone should try. Think about people you know that you can ask to be an employee referral. It is a plus for them. They get a bonus. This is not a favor. This is not a favor. What you say is, I'm going to apply anyways, right? But if you get a chance for a financial incentive, I would love for you to be able to get that. I'm applying anyways. So you're not going to stop me from applying, right? And then what I need to make them feel is I'm qualified. So I like to do a little T account that says, here's the requirements, here's why I meet or exceed them, even for people I know. Make them feel comfortable being an employer referral. I send them a note that they can hit forward send to the hiring manager. That's the quality of the note I want to see, even though I know them, right? So if even I know somebody, I'm going, hey, thanks for doing this. I talked with them, quick call, employer referral, send it through. And if there's no job there, pre-employee referrals. You know, how are you enjoying the company? We have a quick chat. You love your company? That's awesome. If I ever see a job at your company that I'm highly qualified for, would you consider being an employer referral? Lay those employer referrals all over the place. Have them laying everywhere, a whole list of them this long. That will not be wasted time. That'll be much better time than behind the computer looking at applications. All right. So big meetings, I don't know what big meetings are. I don't know how many people are going to big meetings. I'm gonna cover this real quick, right? Don't arrive late and hide in the room. Come early and volunteer, right? Even if you did that here. Now I'm gonna use this as an example. This may not be the best example, but it is one. If you came here early, our meeting started at 6:30. You arrived at 6 o'clock and said, geez, traffic was better than I thought. Traffic was better than I thought. Who's going to be here at 6 o'clock? The volunteers, mostly the volunteers, right? And you come in and offer to help, the volunteers are going to say, tell me a little bit about yourself. Then you say, blah, 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 this is me, this is what I do. They say, boy, you got to meet Will Yateman. When Will comes in, I'm going to introduce you to him. So a needle in a haystack that you probably wouldn't have been able to get on your own. You got here 15 minutes early, you moved a box or you did something, and that person introduces you to someone in that meeting you wouldn't have otherwise met by being a little early. Yes, Mario?
As someone who's done that successfully, they'll say, do it consistently.
Yeah, even better, even better. Sometimes the meetings are one-off, you know, and so you only get one bite at them, but doing a consistency you will develop. Now we're into relationship development, Mario, and it's not just, I'm asking a favor, it's real relationship development. But if you come in anyways, come early. I particularly like it on virtual meetings. I know most of them will say like, meeting starts at 9 o'clock. Like I get on 15 minutes early to my meeting. Some people get on 15 minutes early with me. And they got 15 minutes with the person running the meeting to ask whatever they want. So not everyone starts them early, but you might even check the virtual meetings. Don't get on at 9:03 because they kind of go, you know, make sure, maybe try getting on 10 minutes early, see who's there. Might be worth a try.
One quick thing though.
Yes.
Is if you come here at 6 o'clock every meeting, in-person meeting. You're the guy who's setting up the chairs, setting up the tables, and setting up the food. At a certain point, you build a rapport with organizers. Like, okay, this guy's legit. He's serious.
Yep.
But I can count on.
You get a chance to go deeper.
Right.
You get a chance to go deeper. Absolutely. Relationship building. So in big meetings, people find pockets that work for them. You know, so most of the time is you find a few people that when someone looks to be unengaged, you engage them. You find a few people that have open type of stance. They look like they're greeting people. Jump into those. Again, I find it's a place, if you just have 3 good questions, you can get around that whole room working those 3 good questions, right? But a little preparation so you got them in your back pocket. What are the ones you want to go with? Go with them. The meeting's not that hard. Sometimes you go with somebody else, right? You go in tag team. If it's a really big meeting, they know what you're looking for. You know what they're looking for. You kind of meet someone, say, oh, you got to meet my friend Jane. So you go in as a tag team. We could spend a lot more time on big meetings. I'm just going to touch on it. Sake of time. Okay. So LinkedIn. This is where the highest percentage of people do their networking. And it's good. It has many great features. We certainly are not covering them all tonight. We do a LinkedIn class on Monday nights. We do a LinkedIn class on Wednesday afternoons. Bob is here virtually every week back there reviewing LinkedIn profiles. So we do lots of stuff on LinkedIn. And some of our guest speakers on Tuesday are great LinkedIn speakers too. It is the tool, right? So here's another, if on a scale of 1 to 10, if you are not at least an 8 on LinkedIn, you need to be, right? And LinkedIn has its own way of evaluating, but I'm just gonna leave it as an 8. I'll leave that judgment up to you. Good profile picture, you've worked your profile, but I really like how do we use it as an attack tool, because I'm more focused on networking, right? So you gotta be an 8 out of 10 on LinkedIn. You gotta at least be a 5 out of 10 on AI, right? You can't not touch AI, right? And that 5 is growing, so you gotta be a 5 going in the right direction up towards an 8. But get into AI, it's just such a powerful tool for everything we do. But LinkedIn you gotta have, right? So one of the things like is, we have these target companies, and Mario said, well, you get on, you're connected to people at these targets. True sometimes, often not. People have no one. I want to apply at this job, I know no one at that company. So go on your target companies, who you'd like to work for, get connected to 5 recruiters at each of those companies. Recruiters are open networkers, so they will accept your connection, right? And each recruiter is connected to about 100 hiring managers at that company. So now if I know no one at Amazon, and I go get connected to 5 recruiters at Amazon, now I do a search on Amazon, I'm connected now to thousands of people at Amazon. Why is that important? So now when I do other forms of searches, I'm gonna get much bigger results, right? I can go see, geez, any of them used to work at any company I used to work for. Did any of them go to a school that I used to go for? I can start slice and dice all the people at Amazon until I find some affinity. But recruiters are great opening up to be connected to a lot of people at companies you'd like to be connected to. Always look for affinity. I've seen some people and, yep, yes, comment?
Sometimes when I'm trying to, and I can use my high school cheerleader voice. Do it. Sometimes when I'm trying to build some connections in a company where I don't already know people, because I'm a recruiter, I'm frequently not trying to connect with the recruiters. But there's another group of people, and I say this with love, that will accept almost anybody's connect request. It's if they're in sales. So sometimes starting with a salesperson gives you a connection in a company. They're connected to the other people in their company. Now you're a second degree connection from them, and you can build up from there.
Yeah.
And since I have the mic, I just want to add
Please.
2 more quick things. One is, you can ask anybody for anything. Your only responsibility is to accept their response with grace if they say no. Do not avoid asking if there's something you need. And the number one reason that I hear of why people don't ask for conversations, coffees, meetings is because of fear that you're going to waste the other person's time.
Yeah.
You don't have that much personal power. You can't waste my time. Only I can do that. So if there's something you need, ask for it, accept the response with grace, make sure you say thank you, and be prepared, because that's the real way that you don't waste your time.
Yeah. And while Cheryl has the mic, when she speaks, and she does often, and when she leads one of our accountability groups, our executive accountability group, she always offers to meet with people for 30 minutes if they reach out to her and ask. That's like invaluable. The amazing thing to me is only about 10% of the people take her up on that.
And that's an open offer tonight. Come get my card when we're done.
I thought I'd put that offer. If I knew she would, I wouldn't have said that if I didn't know if she would offer that. But think of someone who's been in executive search for a few years. I know she doesn't look that old, but we use 25. She's comfortable with that. 25 years of executive search, and she's willing to have 30 minutes one-on-one with you. I would do it.
And let me just say, that is not just an offer to the executives. This lovely lady commented to me just for planting the seed of an idea for her. This is not just if you're an executive. My attitude is, I can find something helpful to say in any situation, and that's always my goal. So you should ask, you should tap into my connections. I have almost 6,000 connections on LinkedIn. So you want to connect with me on LinkedIn because that gives you access to my connection. Everything that Bob is saying is absolutely spot on. But the one thing that most of the people here in the room are going to miss is the fact that you have to take the action to make any of this magic happen. So make sure you do that. And yes, that is an open offer. Come get my card, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll send you a link. You will not all make it onto my calendar in the next week, but over time I'll get to you all.
Just curious, how many people are going to take Cheryl up on that? Okay, that's a reasonable number. That's a reasonable number. I know that. I know that. That's okay. That's okay.
We've got a question in the back.
Yes, please.
What about if some of your contacts are retired, recently retired, but you worked with them and they could give you, be a good reference about your quality of your work? What do you think about that, retired contacts?
People who are retired, I've had people tell me, why don't you have anyone connected from this company? And they say they're all retired. And I go, that's wonderful. Retired people have more time. They have more time. They have a lot more time. And they had many connections. So I think it can be a very fertile group. As the time retired lengthens, sometimes we get to be a little less important. But still, it's for advice and information and potential referrals. And you have a retired comment.
And well, not a retired comment, but one other that I meant to mention earlier. The best connected network of people in this country are people that served in the military. If you know someone that served, if someone in your family served, ask them to look up some of the people that they may know at the companies that you want to connect with, because they are the best connected people and they tend to be kind.
They have an amazing community. I find they don't take as much advantage of the community as I think they should. I'll meet an Air Force person, and I'll say, there are 1,000 Air Force people at SAIC. SAIC is a target company. There's 1,000 Air Force people at every large government contractor of size. Sometimes they don't reach out as aggressively, but that community is crazy connected, crazy connected. Excuse me? Yes, Peace Corps. Lots of great communities. So I've had someone who came from Eastern Europe, had no connection here, 0 connections. And basically she did all of her connections through LinkedIn, going from connect to a conversation to coffee. Now she had to have affinity. She went after CNM affinity. We have tens of thousands of people that have come through CNM. She basically reached out to CNM alumni who were working, and that was her target affinity group to land her job, which she did successfully, all on LinkedIn, all on LinkedIn. The other thing is blocking off time in your schedule each week to extend your LinkedIn connections. So you block off time, this hour, this 2 hours. I am only focused on where do I need to extend my connections, and I do that every week, right? So that you're doing it strategically, not who sent me a request that I can accept, but you're thinking, where do I want to extend my connections? Again, people in my industry, people doing my function, right? Lots to do there. All right, I got to go quicker. Informational interviews. For the people coming out of federal government, maybe the single most powerful tool, right? Maybe the single most powerful tool. Crazy amount of stuff, again, on AI about how to do them. The difference is you can say, I'm transitioning from the federal government. I'm just trying, this is not about a job. I'm just trying to get smarter. Everyone is you're going to have a crazy high acceptance rate for the next 6 months. It's going to drop a lot after that, right? Same thing with recent graduates. Crazy high when you're in school, crazy high for a short window. After you've been out a year, drops off dramatically. But doesn't mean it can't be higher if you work it better, but it is a window. You're changing industries, you're changing functions, you're changing geographically. This is not about a job, this is about me getting smarter. I'm looking for air. You reach out to people that you want to get, people doing what you want to do, right? Reach out to them. Informational interviews, crazy powerful. Yes, comment.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that the industries, all of the industries need
The industries need the government people just as much as the government people need the industries, because there's a whole new way of doing things which they need to be taught, and once they understand it, they get super assistance.
Yeah. No reason not to do more informational. So it's on your bucket. What are the things? What are the tools in my tool chest? Informational interviews. I've seen other people use them too, even if they're not transitioning industries. They just use them, try to get smarter. You have to be able to say it's not about a job. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to try to get smarter. I might still go advice, information. I still might get referrals out of it, but it's not about a job. Informational interviews. Okay, so Meetup. If you go into Meetup and say, okay, what meetups are around this topic within 10 miles of my house, 15 miles of my house? Now they're all virtual, so it really doesn't matter how far it is from your house. Most of them are virtual. But there's tens of thousands of Meetup meetings on every topic you can imagine. So if you're looking for more meetings, we could give you ideas of other meetings around people who we think are some really great people who speak on job search topics. But if you're looking for them in professional associations or other places, you name it, they exist on Meetup. Check it out. So when I close some of my notes with people, or I've gotten notes from people, these are two that stuck with me. Thanks for investing in me. Kind of like that one. So a little bit different when someone's done something to be helpful to you, or I would gladly pay forward your generosity. Those two I thought were different, a little different, kind of close with a smile. I think I'm done. I am done. Thanks for staying a little later.